All right, so this will be part 2 to my previous to-do list video. And if you're not familiar with what I did so far, I'm gonna link to the original video in the description so you can see how I got to this point. But in this one, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to move everything that's complete in our to-do list to a separate worksheet. So first of all, let me just make all of these the same size. I'm just gonna resize one of these, and that should make all of them same size. There it is. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make a copy of this. So I'll click here, duplicate, and I'll just rename this to complete. And we'll also name this complete, I guess. So this will be our complete list, which shouldn't really have anything. So I'm just gonna erase all of this. And I probably also don't want this. I'm not sure about that. I'll just leave it here. It doesn't matter. So the main thing here, if I go to this to-do one, is gonna be, we're not going to keep anything that's complete in here when we check the box in the spreadsheet. As soon as we check the box, we'd like to move that data to this complete list. So first, let me uncheck all of these. And all of these are past due at this point, so let me just move them. So in this one, I'm no longer going to keep completed on column. I'll just have these three. So now let's get to our script editor again. Now this was the one that was adding a timestamp. We're probably not going to be adding the timestamp in the same way because we're not going to be adding it here like we used to. So we'll be able to use a lot of this code, but not all of it. So the part that should be good here is everything that we start here. Well, let's actually rename this function. We're going to just call it complete. And that will be this function. Maybe not the best name, but whatever. I'm sure you can name it better than I do. So we're still going to be doing all of this. We're going to find that cell done. We're going to basically find the row and the column, and then we'll check this guard statements to make sure we're in the correct spreadsheet. Let's actually comment this. And this line shouldn't be here anyways, but we'll use that for autocomplete. So here, this is where we used to do our timestamp. And this is where we used to clear our timestamp. So I'm going to comment both of these lines for now. And we're going to take a different approach. So what we're going to do instead of adding a timestamp to this cell, we want to make sure when we check the box, we grab all of this data and move it to this complete worksheet. Now to do that, we need to first store a reference to this worksheet. So it's called complete. Let's just copy that. Go back to our script. And here, probably after this guard statement, let's grab that worksheet. And the way we're going to get to it, we'll get our source, e.source, which should be our spreadsheet. And in this one, we should have get sheet by name. And we'll pass that name complete right in here. So that way we should have a reference to this complete sheet. Now the next thing we're going to need to figure out in that complete sheet where we're going to be moving our data. So if we already have something here, we want to basically put it below. So for that reason, we need to find where's the last row in this particular sheet. Now, the problem we may have is that if we just get a regular last row, some of these checkboxes, see over here, they say false. So if we get the last row, it's probably going to get us, well, the last one that says false pretty much. In this case, see, even this one says false. So it would get us row 35. But that's not what I'm trying to get. I need to get this row over here. So the way I'll get that, I'll basically do something similar we do in Excel usually, when I'll just grab a cell in the bottom here in this column G, and I'll use this column G because here we have values. So in this column G, if we basically just do Command up or Control up, see it goes all the way until it hits this cell that has some value in it. And then we can go one down from that to know this is the correct row. So basically we need to go to this column of tasks and move to the bottom of that column and do Control up to get to this. So let's do that. So that's our complete sheet. So we're going to do something similar to this one, where we basically going to do the text finder to find the right column. So I'm going to copy this much, paste it over here. Only this time, instead of active sheet, that will be complete sheet. Instead of done, it will be tasks. Now we cannot name the variable the same here, so we'll do text finder tasks. And then because of that, we'll also use that same variable name over here and over here. And we're going to find that cell tasks. So we're probably not going to need the row for that. So we'll just get the column. And again, because we already have a variable here like that, we're going to name it something else. So at this point, well, actually, let's make sure we refer to the right variable here. So from that cell, we're going to get the column. So at this point, this tasks column should be able to find this column G index. So it's going to tell us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, whatever column that is. So in that column, we want to start from the bottom of the spreadsheet over here and do Command up to get to this point. So how do we move to the bottom of that worksheet? We'll take this complete sheet and do get last row. And it's probably not going to find the exact bottom of it. It will find the last row in the whole worksheet, but that should work just fine for us. So this should get us the last row that's used in that spreadsheet or worksheet. So I'll get back to this line in a second. I'll just copy paste that. But for me, what I want to do now, I want to take that complete sheet and get range. So basically, I want to point to that cell in the bottom. And here we're going to need the row number and the column number. So the row number is going to be this, the last row in a spreadsheet, comma, and the column number is going to be this tasks column. So that should bring us to the bottom of that column. So from the bottom of that column, now on this, well, there's no autocomplete. So let's do it in here. We'll do get range. And over here, I'm going to do dot. And we should have this thing called get next data cell. And see, it's going to accept a direction. This is where we're going to do that Control up. Up should be the direction. So if I scroll down, should be some sort of, see, there it is. Exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to copy paste that. Direction up. That's what we're going to do. So that should basically do that Control up thing. So I'm going to grab this and put it right in here. Let's move these to a new line because this line is getting too long. And finally, again, there's no autocomplete, so let's use this. That should still be a range. So we'll offset from that range. We want to go, so remember the idea was if I do Control or Command up, then I want to go one down from wherever I end up. So that's going to be our offset. So we'll do 1 row down, 0 column offset. So that should go right in here, which I'll put it in the next line just to have this like this. And we're going to save all of that in a variable. So that should be the target cell in this tasks column where we want to move to. I need the row number. So I'm just going to do get row. And again, I'll just move this to the next line. Tab this in just to keep this organized. So at this point, this will be the target row, not target cell. So now that I have the row where this is going to go, which would be 5 in this particular case, hopefully, we can now think about what we're going to move to that spot. So we're going to move, well, basically this entire row content over there. I don't know if it's going to need only the cell or it's going to need the whole range. I'm going to try to just give it the first cell. And if it works, it works. If it's not, we'll do the whole range. So what we'll do, we'll take our data. So basically, remember, this is going to give us the case when the checkbox is checked. So when it's checked, we want to take the modified cell, which should refer to that checkbox cell. And we're going to do offset from that cell. And again, let's just do offset here so you can see how it works. If I do offset, let's just go to this other options. See, offset has this other options where you can specify row offset, column offset, and also number of rows and number of columns. So what I want to do when I do this offset, I want to basically say, okay, so if this is the checked cell, then, well, it's actually going to be here. If this is the check box, then from this cell, go 3 to the right and include that cell in there. So basically, we're going to start from this same cell, and then we're going to go to right. And to do that, what we'll do 0 and 0 offset to start from the same cell. And then after the comma, see, there's the number of rows. We're just going to need a single row. And then the number of columns is going to be 3. So this way, we'll grab that range next to that checked box. So I'll just grab this and put it right in here. So now that should refer to the range that we need to basically move. On that range, let's actually do that offset here. So we get the autocomplete. We should have this thing move to. And that should basically have a target range. Only the top left cell position is relevant. Okay, excellent. So we just need that position of the cell itself. We don't need the whole range apparently. So we're going to do that move to right in here. And this is where we need to pass where we want to move it to. And that will be that target cell we want to move it to. And now I've realized that based on this, I don't want to do the row, I want to do the cell. So I'm going to remove the get row and do target cell. Now the problem with this cell that I have right now is that it used to be like going in this tasks, doing control up, going one down. So this is this cell. What I really need is this cell one to the left, the checkbox cell. So that's why what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do -1 to go 1 column to the left. And that would be the correct target cell. And I'll pass that to this move to. So I'll just save this and let's just test this so far and see if we're able to actually move the range or not. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet. So the idea here is if I go to my to-do one and I check, let's say, another one, that should be now moved to here. That's good. Now, if I check another one, that should go right below that. That seems to work fine, even though the conditional formatting here doesn't seem to be correct. I don't really care about that much here at this point, at least. What I do want to do, however, is to also add the timestamp after it's been moved to this other spreadsheet. So let's see how we're going to do that. So once we move this to that spreadsheet, then we want to add the timestamp. And the timestamp is going to be basically in here, right? So if we think about this is our target cell, the timestamp is going to be 1, 2, 3 columns to the right. So what we can do this target cell, and then we need to go 3 columns to the right. So it's actually going to be pretty much this, what we used to have. So I'm just going to copy that. We're going to offset 0 rows, 3 columns to the right, and we're going to set the value to be the timestamp. So hopefully, I don't think we're going to need this anymore. So let's get rid of this. So hopefully this is going to work. So let's just save, go test this, and then we'll come back and see what we're going to do. So I'll go back to my to-do, check this, upload the video. Let's go check. See, that was moved here. And we also have completed on. Excellent. So one thing you may have noticed at this point is that when we remove this thing out of here, then we have this empty space. And that also seems to clear the formatting, which I don't enjoy that much. Maybe instead of moving it, we should actually copy it and then clear what's in here so that we don't end up with this empty formatting situation that I have right now. And the second thing, even if we do that, we still want to probably make sure we move this thing up here so we don't have these empty cells. But let's take it one step at a time. So I'm going to undo all the steps to get back to what I had. So Control Z or Command Z. And this is where I started. Now that's not going to change my code, but it should help me test this. So I'll go back here, and right here where I did move to, I'm actually going to do, see this copy to instead. So we'll just switch that copy to over here. And I think it should accept the same thing, the range. Yep. So this way it will copy but not remove the actual data that's in that particular position. And then we can just clear it ourselves so that the formatting stays. So after we move that to the target cell, let's actually take that modified cell, well, actually the same thing, the offset. And on this, we'll do clear content. So let's go back and take a look. So I'm going to go ahead and check one of these boxes. Now, this shouldn't be checked. Let's uncheck it. That's not going to do anything. Let's just check this box now. So that did move the data. Very good. And it also kept the formatting. So let's just do another one just to verify this. Yes, good. So the way I'm going to deal with these empty ones, I'm just going to sort this thing. Because when you sort, blanks would generally just go to the bottom. And we'll sort it by this, I guess, tasks column. So if you just imagine if I just take this column manually right now, go to data and do sort range, and then sort it by this, well, probably I'm going to do by due date because that makes more sense. I'll do due date and I'll do Z to A to have, do we want Z to A or A to Z? Probably A to Z, because the one that's due next, we want to have it on top. So we'll do A to Z. If we do sort, see what happens. It sorts this, and then we have our blank cells in the bottom. I'm going to undo this because we want that to happen automatically. So what we need to do to be able to sort this, we need to grab all this data from here until the bottom and do the sorting. So what I'll do to make it happen, I'll just go here. What we'll do, we'll have our, see over here, we have that done cell right in here. And that done cell is basically like this one over here. So from here, we want to go one cell down, 3 to the right, and then basically all the way down until we get this whole thing. So to do that, I'll go back to this and I'll select that cell done and do offset from that cell. We want one cell down, one row down, stay in the same column, 0 column, and then the number of, was it number of rows next or number of columns? Let's check it here. So 0, 0. Then number of rows is next. So then we need to figure out number of rows, and then the next one is going to be number of columns. So the number of rows, I need to basically figure it out by grabbing the last row in the spreadsheet and then do minus however many rows I have on top here, which is where the done cell is. So basically in this particular case, if I have 35 rows, I need to do 35 minus 4 to get the row count, which will be 31. And for that, I'm going to just take the last row in the sheet that we were on. So that would be, in this case, the active sheet. Dot get last row. So from that, we need to do minus the row number where the cell done is. So cell done dot get row. Just like that. So that should give us the correct number of rows, and comma, and then we need the number of columns, which will be 3 columns to the right. So 3, not 2, 3. So that should select the range that we have, assuming I got this whole thing right. Now on that range, we should be able to sort it. See, again, autocomplete doesn't work, so I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to sort. And here we need to pass the sort object. Something like this. So we need to give it the column number, which is the column in our spreadsheet, and whether this is ascending or descending. So it will be ascending in this case, so true. And the column number is going to be the column that's in our spreadsheet. So first of all, let's just copy and paste it right in here. And here, as the column number, we need to sort by this due date column. And the way we're going to find that, we'll take the done column and go 2 to the right. And lucky for us, we have the done column as a variable. As a matter of fact, we have the done row as a variable too. Maybe we should have used that. See, we have this row, we have this COL. So row, see right in here, instead of doing cell done dot get row, I'm just going to do row. And here we'll just do that column plus 1, 2. Let's wrap it in parentheses. That should hopefully sort this. So let's just actually comment this line. Invalid syntax on line 43. How is that invalid syntax if we, I don't know. I just saved it again. It seems to be fine. So I'll just go back and check this one. That moved, and it seems like it was sorted just fine. It's here. Let's undo all of these things. Let me uncheck this. So this is where we started. There was nothing here, incomplete. So I should be able to now check this one. And that kind of moved it in here. Very good. I should be able to check this one. And that moves over here. Very good. Maybe we should also sort this in some way. When we do this, I don't know. So I'm going to check this one. Good, that works. Now here, I'm probably going to sort it by completed on column and have the latest one on top. So let's also sort this complete data. So to do that, again, we sorted this one. Now let's sort the one that's complete. The way we can find that is going to be based on our tasks cell. So we have this task cell that we find over here. Let's go one left, one down. That would be the starting point. And then from here, we'll do like number of rows, number of columns. So again, from task cell, we want to go one left and one down. Okay, so cell tasks. We're going to take that and do offset. And we'll do one row down, one column left. The number of rows we need to, again, calculate. So to find the last row, we should be able to use the target cell, because target cell, remember, we did that control down and up trick to get to the target cell. So whatever that target cell is over here, let's say, when we do that control up, we then went one down for the target cell and one left. So this will be that cell that we're calling the target cell. So we need to just say whatever that is minus 1 to get to this row minus the number of rows we have here on top, which is the tasks row over here. Okay, fair enough. So we'll take the target cell and do get row. From that, we'll do minus 1. And from that, we'll do minus cell tasks dot get row. So that should give us the right number of rows, if I'm not mistaken. And finally, the number of columns in this one is actually 4, because we have that extra column there. So we'll do 4. That should be the range, and we should be able to sort this. So again, I'm just going to copy this sort thing, paste it in here, and we need to figure out by which column we're sorting this by. So this is not going to be ascending. This is going to be descending. So we'll do false, because we want the latest one on top in this case. But for the column, how are we going to find the column? Well, we should be able to get this cell tasks, which should be this column, and do +2 to get to the right column. So we'll just do that dot get column +2, and then ascending false. I think that's correct. Let's save and see what happens. Again, I'm going to undo these things. Okay, let's test this. So if I do make the video, that should move it over there. Now, if I do edit the video, make the video should move down if this works. And it didn't. So it should be edit the video, then make the video. Let me just try one more and then upload the video. Interestingly, now this one moved. Are we not getting the last row correctly? Let's think about this. So we have target cell. We get the row of the target cell. And then we do minus this row number and minus 1. Let's just think about that. So if this is our target cell, 7, we do minus 4, which is this one. We're going to get a 3. We don't need to do minus 1. So let's just get rid of this. I think that's where I went wrong on this one. Let's just undo and try it again. So nothing in here. Let's try it again. So make the video. Moves it over here. Good. Edit the video. So now it moved it to the right spot. Upload the video. Now it works correctly. Okay, good. Now the next thing I want to do, I want to make sure if we uncheck one of these things over here, I want to move it back to my to-do list over here. That means we need a separate trigger function on the other worksheet. This is for our to-do lists. So what I'll do, I'll probably remove the else statement from here because it doesn't seem like we need to do anything if we uncheck it here because it's not going to happen. So what I'll do, I'll just remove this else out of this function. And that means I need to change this if to be a guard statement. So I'm going to say if this is not true, which I don't even think is going to be necessary, but let's just do it just in case. So I'll just say if it's not true, then return. And we should probably do this before we do all of this other stuff. And then in all the other cases, we'll just move on and do all these things we just did. So now we have this complete function. Let's just rename this move to complete. And we'll do it over here. And now we're going to create another function that will move to to-do list. I'll just copy paste this and call it move to do, I guess. And then we're going to create that function, which I'm just going to copy this and paste right below. And we'll just call it move to do. And this is where we're going to take care of that case. What happens when we uncheck something from this spreadsheet? So now the first thing we need to check, we need to make sure that we're on the correct worksheet, on the one that's called complete. Let's just call this one complete. So if it's not complete, we want to stop. We don't want to do anything. In this case, we're also going to check the done cell. We're going to find the cell that's done, and that should all be fine. So it's going to be in the right column, right row. So this is going to be fine. Only this time it's going to be if we uncheck it, if it's false, basically. Now, one thing we're going to remember now, in this case, the active sheet is actually going to be this one, the one that's complete. And this is, by the way, shouldn't be starts with. So we'll just change this to if it equals to complete. Open parentheses here. So that should take care of that. Good. So this time, instead of now getting the complete sheet, we need to actually get to-do sheet. And we'll just hard code the name, at least for now. That's our to-do one. And then we need to figure out, well, if we uncheck one of these, that's going to go over here, right? So again, we need to now figure out in this tasks column, which is the last one. So that means, again, we're going to search in that to-do sheet now, that tasks text. We're going to find the next one, that cell, and we're going to get the column. So all of that is going to be fine. Then we're going to take that to-do sheet again over here. Same here. So now we need the target cell again. So in that to-do sheet, we're going to find the last row. And then in that column, we're going to do that same control up. We're going to find that same cell. Same thing should be just fine. Now, what are we going to move? So when we move this now, remember this complete has 4 columns and this one has 3 columns. So what we need to do, we need to move the first 3 columns, and then we need to also clear this 4th column, whatever we have here. So our modified cell is going to be the checkbox that was unchecked over here. So from that modified cell, we're going to go 3 columns right and stay in the same row. So 0, 0, 1 row, 3 columns. So that's going to be the actual data. We're going to copy to our target cell. All of that should be just fine. Now, we don't need to set a date for this. So this is going to go. But we do need to clear the content in that range. Only we need to clear all the 4 columns. not just 3 columns. And then we need to get to our sorting. So in this case, cell done would refer to this cell. So we're going to sort this data, which means we're going to do, again, that 1, 0 offset. That should be fine. The active sheet will be the current sheet. We'll get the last row minus the row. That should be all fine. The columns will be 4 instead of 3. And we're going to sort it by that column, which will be whatever this column is plus 1, 2, 3 to get to completed on. So this would be COL plus 3, and it's going to be descending. So this is going to be false. So that's the first one we need to sort. Now the second one we need to sort now. So everything is kind of switched, right? So now we need to sort this one next. So that cell tasks is going to be now this cell. And from that, again, we're going to do 1 row down, -1 to get to this cell over here. And then we need to grab however far we need to go down and then 3 columns. So that will be our target cell, get row, cell tasks, all of that should be fine. Only this should be 3. And then we're going to sort by that column. And which column are we sorting by? So tasks, due date. So 1 column to the right of tasks. So it's going to be +1 instead of +2. And then ascending will be true for this one. So I think I got that right, but there's only one way to figure this out, is to test this and see what happens. So let's go back and see what happens. So hopefully, if I did everything correctly, if I uncheck one of this, it will disappear from here, which it did. And then it will appear here, and it did. And if I uncheck another one of these, that will go here. And if I check one of them, it should still go to our completed list. Uncheck it, it should move to the other one. Seems like it all works just fine. So I'm able now to move back and forth between my data sets. Now, the last thing I want to do, however, here, if you remember, we set this up in a way that when we duplicate this to-do list, we would have another to-do list that starts with like to-do and says something, right? Now, what if we have this? Now, if we have that, this is not going to work very well because right now we hard-coded to send everything back to to-do 1. So the part where we're sending to complete should still work. So if I click on this to-do 2, it should still work and move it to complete. And then I should be able to move that same upload the video from this one as well to the same complete. Now I'm going to have both of them. But now, if I uncheck it, both of these will go to to-do 1. So to be able to know where it needs to go, we need to somehow store where that came from to begin with. We can add another column to this to store which worksheet that information came from. So what I'll do, I'll just copy paste this and this complete, and then we'll call it source. Remerge this. And we're not going to have that thing in here. Instead, what we want to do, we want to have like this came from like to do 1. Maybe this came from to do 2. And this came from maybe to do 1. So this is the type of thing we need. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to, well, it's going to be the first one. The one that says move to complete. So in this one, what we did, we're again going to check the same things. We're going to find the same cell. We're going to check if it's one of those worksheets, which will be our active sheet in this case. And if it's checked, all of these things are going to be the same. And we're going to move to our complete sheet, which will be our target cell. See, this is where we copy that information to that target cell. So what we need to do, in addition to copying that information to target cell, is to also fill in where this data came from. And to do that, we'll take our target cell and do offset. And what we're doing right here at this point, we're offsetting, see, in the next line, I'm doing 0, 3 to go 3 columns to the right here from the checkbox, 3 columns to the right, 1, 2, 3, to find this completed on to do the timestamp. So this is where we did this. So here we're going to do 4 columns to go to the next column. And we're going to set the value. We're not going to put the date in there though. We need the name of the worksheet. And the worksheet we want is our active sheet, because this is where that to-do list checkbox is that we're clicking on. So I'm just going to copy that from here and paste it right in there. Now, one thing I have to be careful about is, since I add another column here, when I'm sorting this, I need to make sure now I include that column when I sort. So we're going to clear the content. That's fine. So let's see, where are we sorting that data? We take this cell done, and then we do offset 1, 0, active sheet last row. And instead of 3 columns, well, this is actually not the right one. This is actually the to-do list. So this is going to stay the same. This is the one we want to sort, which is going to be this one over here. So right now it's 4 columns. Now it's going to become 5 columns. But we're still going to sort by the same column, timestamp column. We want to just make sure we include this column. So 5. So let me actually get rid of this comment at this point. So that should hopefully move the name of the worksheet there too. So let's just test this. Let's go to do 2, check, make the video. So that moved. And see, it says to do 2. Now let's go to do 1. So that went to here, and that's to do 1. So good. So the source goes in fine. Then we'll use that reference when we have to move it back. So now when I uncheck the box, I want to move it to this source, back to the same source. So what I'll do, I'll just scroll down. This is where we move it to to-do list. I'm going to scroll down again. So see, now we're hard coding here to move it to to-do 1. What we need to do is change it to move it to whatever that cell says. So which cell is that going to be? Well, it's going to be somewhere from this modified cell. So our modified cell is going to be the checkbox we're on check. So from this checkbox cell, we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 columns to the right to figure out what's in there. So we'll take that modified cell and offset 0 rows. And I think I said 4 columns, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just count it again. From here, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to get the value from that cell. So from here, we'll do get value. And that should be the name of the worksheet. I should be able to just grab this and put it right in here. But I guess it will be clearer if we just save this in a variable and call it like const to do sheet name. And then pass it over here. We also probably have to fix that sorting thing, because now we have an extra column when we sort. And we also clear the content. See, when we clear the content now from here, we need to do all of it. So that's going to be 5 here. Then we're going to sort this data. So again, 5 columns. The rest should be fine. So I'm going to save this. Let's test this and see how it goes. Let's try this. So what's going on in our to do 1 and to do 2? Let's do this one, because we don't have it here in to-do 1. So I'm going to uncheck this. So that cleared it from here. Hopefully it went back to to-do 1, and it did. Good. That's our to-do 2. Now, if I uncheck this one, it should go to to-do 2. And it did. It shouldn't exist in to-do 1 because that was done in that one. Good. Now, if I uncheck all of these, they should all go back to our original worksheets. So there we go. Why do we have less in the other one? I probably copied it after I moved it at some point. Well, that's fine. But now we have our complete. We have our different to-dos. We should be able to create another one. And let's just change these things because otherwise it's confusing. Okay, and this one will be all the twos. We have all of these, we have all of that, we have all of that, and this is our complete sheet. So if I check one of these boxes, that should move it to our complete. If I go to to-do, check one of these boxes, that should move it to here. See? If I go from here and check this one and maybe this one, that should move it to here, and it should also store the source. And at any point, we should be able to uncheck this and send it back to our list over here. These two should go to our first to-do. Here we go. And finally, this should go back to our second one. That looks good. So now we have a to-do list where we can actually move things to our complete list when it's done, and everything sorts nicely as well. I have a separate video that explains this, but you could also add auto sort functionality to this to-do sheets. So every time you add something to this list, it automatically sorts by due date. I'm going to leave that one up to you. You can refer to my auto sort video. But for this one, that should do it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.